in the previous layout, I was 449th.
Okay.
So top 3, I think, in the UK.
Are you competitive, or are you just more competing with yourself? Hi Tom.
Hi George.
How are you?
Really good, thank you. How are you?
I'm really good. Thank you so much for inviting me into your beautiful home and this beautiful scape here, which we're going to do a deep dive on. Is that okay?
Yeah, that's perfect. Thank you for coming.
Oh, that's my pleasure. Let's go from the start. What is it?
So it's a competition scape for the ILPLC 2023. I've only got one tank, the D&D Aquascape 900, and the inspiration for it was really an Asian biotope setup.
Okay.
The main character being the chocolate gourami, and then I've got a dither fish, which is the Brevibora dorsiocellata, or the ice pot rasbora.
Okay. Is that also known as emerald eye rasbora?
That is, yes.
They're beautiful, aren't they?
They are, yeah.
That right, bright blue eye.
Yeah, I was weighing up whether to go for the red line rasbora or the blue stripe rasbora.
Yeah.
But I felt they'd take away from the main fish.
Yeah, a bit bigger.
So, yeah, and so having a silver-bodied fish, I felt didn't take away from the main character as much.
I love the way the blue eye contrasts as well with the brown. It's a very kind of brown, kind of themed aquascape, which I absolutely love, because a lot of aquascapes are very colourful, very high impact.
Yeah.
But this is really kind of a subtle beauty.
Yeah, I think for me I wanted to create a sort of that mood of, having a lot of shadow, a lot of shadow space, and having the deep greens behind the sort of the chocolate browns as such.
Yeah. It's amazing. So a bit about you, Tom. How long have you been scaping?
So I've been scaping now since I was 18, so what's that, about 7-8 years now.
Okay.
And really it was from my love of fish keeping.
Yeah.
I remember scrolling through YouTube and seeing the Green Machine, Crimson Sky Aquascape, and sort of fell in love with.
That's that shallow with the Altananthera?
That's it. Yeah.
I'll overlay an image of it. It's really beautiful.
Yeah, and sort of really powerful rock work in that as well, and that was sort of the first sort of inspiration as such. And
so did you buy a shallow tank then based on that?
Yeah, I bought the 90F originally,
and
I was living at my parents at the time, and it was the only tank that could fit in the space.
Okay.
And so I did a few scapes in that, but I think the 90Ps and even the 120Ps, when you go up at the next level, they just give you so much more room to play with.
Of course, yeah. And so the actual tank then is a D&D 900?
Yeah, so it's
basically a 90P, isn't it?
It is. It's 50 front to back, so a bit more depth to play with.
So 50 centimetres front to back, which is 20 inches.
Yeah, and 45 tall. What I do find is for the competitions, I feel like the 120Ps is probably the optimum tank.
Okay.
So you'll notice here that I've brought the water level down a bit to almost create the same ratios exactly on camera.
Yeah.
And my final photo, when I submit that to the competition, you'll see I've actually brought it down to sort of about this level, so it is literally the same ratios as the 120.
Yeah.
I feel those sort of landscape ratios are better for competitions.
Yeah.
Unless you're doing a U-shape composition.
Yeah.
Which obviously suits the 90P a bit better.
Yeah. Well, good luck in the contest. When's the actual deadline for the?
So deadline for submission is May. Can't remember the date now.
Okay.
But the results is August.
Okay. Good luck. And you bought a camera especially to.
I have,
take photos,
So I entered my first tank last year, and that was based on an Amazon biotope.
Yeah.
With Petrophilium leopoldi.
Oh, the leopoldi angelfish.
Yes.
Yeah, it's like got a snouty nose, isn't it? Yeah,
exactly. And they were good because they're smaller than
the they stay smaller, that's interesting.
Autumn's angels.
Yeah, a bit stubbier.
They are.
Aren't they?
Yeah.
Well, if it's okay, I'll overlay a picture of that.
Yeah,
it's a beautiful scape. It reminds me of like classic Amano.
Yeah.
With the quite broad textured leaves, and because you're using Halanthium quadrico starter, aren't you? The chainsword.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's a beautiful scape. I remember you sent me a photo on it on Messenger, and I was like, wow, I really like that. I was hoping you'd have it running. I was like, oh, can I come and film that? But then I've seen this, and this is even more beautiful.
No, thank you.
Yeah. So let's talk about the equipment to start with, and then we can talk about the scape in more detail. So the lighting.
So I've got the ADA solar RGB with the solar arm as well.
That's very fancy.
Yeah, I think for me it's right by the door as you walk in, so it's the first thing you see when you get into the house.
Yeah.
And I think I could justify the premium equipment by having it part of the furniture as the house.
Yeah.
Walking in and seeing it, you almost, it's the first thing that people see when they come in. You want to impress them a bit.
Yeah, it's a great first impression.
I've got that for the lighting along with the light ground.
Okay.
Sorry, that's the ADA.
That's the
light
ADA
screen.
light screen. Okay.
In the back as well.
Does it come with can you get a film with it to change the colour?
You can get films.
But you wanted the white, I guess.
Yeah. I think it's
more
natural, exactly.
Yeah.
And then in terms of filtration, I've got two filters. So I've got the OR's A600 and the Eheim 250T.
Okay.
And the pipe work is in the back corner, so you can't
see it. Yeah, it's amazing.
But yeah, I find having more filtration is definitely better than less.
Yeah.
Especially with the wood heavy layout, you get a lot of tannins.
Yeah.
So I think I've got you get the 100 milliliter bagged Purigen.
Mm-hmm.
I've got 4 of those.
Wow.
2 in each filter. Also the C-Chem Matrix Carbon.
Okay.
Which again is a tannin remover.
Yeah.
And then I use the C-Chem Matrix as the
media. Okay. Interesting. You could argue, because it is very kind of biotope theme, isn't it? You could argue you should let the tannins build up, really, and you could go for black water, and then you get this sort of orangey glow because of the light screen.
Well, that's the thing. For the first month or so, I actually, with this tank, I did something called a dark start.
Right,
so I didn't plant it for the first month. I just let the filters run.
So you filled it up with water, no plants.
Let it run to let the bacteria colonise basically in the filters and the substrate.
Right.
And during that period, it was quite murky.
Yeah, of course.
What's
the benefits of the dark start?
For me, I think you get over the early algae phase with plants. If you do it successfully and you keep the light off, then the idea is bacteria will colonise in the substrate and also in the filter. Okay. So then you already have a working mature system basically.
Because I guess the soil will have ammonia, so that will feed the bacteria, won't it, to keep it alive.
Yeah.
And then they will allow the wood to kind of leach all of its stuff. Any fungal growth you can remove, I guess.
Yeah, exactly. So I remember this was covered in the white.
Yeah, the fungal stuff. Yeah.
Literally all of it, all over, and it was a bit of a nightmare to clean, especially down in these corners where, to be honest, I can't reach all the way down to this corner.
No.
So yeah, it was a bit of a nightmare. But with the Amino shrimp, I've got Siamese algae in there, and also Autosynclus.
Okay, you've got an algae crew.
Yeah, they help clean it up.
And what substrate have you got then?
So I use ADA Power Sand, and then the ADA Amazonia.
Right.
And then I've topped that with the Plata Sand, mixed with the Aqua Gravel.
Oh, nice.
And these are the WIO Elderly boulders, also the Lake McDonald boulders.
Lake McDonald?
Yeah.
Never heard of this.
Yeah, so they come in packs, sort of.
Is that WIO as well?
Yeah.
Okay.
And they're the orangey colours, but they also have red colours here.
Yeah.
I did have the red boulders towards the centre, but I felt it was a bit too unnatural.
Yeah.
So I ended up removing those and having more of the grayer.
Yeah. I think they'd be too kind of impactful, like drawing your eye too much, isn't it? Yeah. Interesting. Well, these like match the La Planta really nicely, don't they?
Yeah.
Yeah, it's beautiful. And I've noticed you kind of using a moss-covered foreground, which I think looks amazing. You don't really often see this in modern aquascapes.
Yeah, so that inspiration for that really was from Josh Sims' last competition aquascape called Samurai, and he used similar substrate for that.
Yeah.
So it's a mixture of Christmas moss, it's the WIO Ancient Root.
Right, is that these tiny spindly twigs?
It is. So I've got a big stash of it in there. I've literally just broken it up. And the only thing, it doesn't sink.
Right.
So I've had to cover it in rocks for the first month or so.
Till it soaks.
Till it soaks.
Oh, that's interesting.
And then I've got a mixture of Eleocharis, Cryptoparva, and also Albedo Brown as well.
Yeah, I think you've done really well with the plant choice. And you have to use kind of, I know we'll talk about the kind of the concept because it's Southeast Asian sort of style, but the plant choice has to be appropriate because you've got so much shading, haven't you, from the wood. Yeah. So crypts are perfect because they'll thrive in lower levels of light. And I think going back to your filtration, you need powerful filtration to get the appropriate circulation around the tank as well, don't you? And so you're using CO2 injection?
Yes, I have an inline CO2 system, CO2 art I use, and that's connected to the OASE, so the high flow filter, and that helps get it everywhere in the tank. I turn it on about an hour and a half before the lights come on.
Okay.
To be honest, I don't really measure bubbles. It's more a case of if the plant's pearl within a half hour to an hour after lights to coming on, then I sort of know it's about right. Obviously, you've got to watch out for the, overdoing it with the fish.
I think that's a good lesson. And people get fixated on measuring stuff with numbers, but I think the best way is to observe and then learn, like through observation, rather than relying on just fixed numbers, because numbers don't tell the truth really. What does tell the truth is, are your plants growing, are your fish healthy? And then you can, by repeating that kind of observation, you get to intuitively understand the system, rather than, I've got this problem, how can I fix it by changing numbers? That doesn't work really.
Yeah, no, I've found as long as the plants are happy, then generally the fish are happy too. And there's a lot of tweaking to do, over the first month or so. But once you nail it, you dial it in really.
I must admit, I've never counted my bubbles for a long time. I don't even use a drop checker.
No.
Just see the plant growth, make sure the fish are healthy, the plants are healthy, and then that's all you need. In fact, sometimes in my 400 now, I'm probably only running 3 bubbles a second, which is really low for a big tank. But the plants are purling, the fish are super happy, and why use more CO2 if you don't need it? Yes, but the overall theme I think is really clever, because in my mind it's like a hybridised nature aquarium, biotope, sort of natural habitat. In fact, did you speak with Ty Streetman about?
Yeah, so I think for my previous layout, I've always sort of analysed the IAPLC contest and looked at the diorama layouts versus the nature aquarium layouts. And one thing that I sort of realised not many people are doing are pure biotopes in the IAPLC. This layout itself, red moorwood, which is from Asia, and it's got a plant choice which is all from Southeast Asia. And so every plant and fish in here is native to that area, and I feel more sense of joy, I think, by doing that rather than creating something which say isn't totally natural.
It gives you like an anchor point. It gives you like a goal of, I want to create something that's almost pure. Do you know what I mean? So the opposite is, in my mind, the opposite is almost diorama in terms of fish keeping, or there's nothing against dioramas, but it's more of a pure art form. Whereas this is like combining the art with actual genuine fish keeping, because you're trying to create a beautiful home for them that actually looks beautiful as well. And I think there's an added level of beauty because you're staying true to where the fish might exist in the wild, rather than trying to satisfy your own kind of almost narcissistic creativity, because you see these beautiful dioramas, and they're very conceptual and they're very beautiful, but they're nothing like you'd see in nature, and that's okay. I guess that's part of their attraction to the creator. But if you want to create something more in harmony with nature, which I think is Amano's kind of philosophy, then I think this is more in keeping with that personally. And I think it's brilliant because you're crossing a boundary in terms of creating a contest level aquascape, but using, you know, nature and proper sort of habitat style.
Yeah, I think what my starting point is really the theme, overall theme. So I knew from my previous layout and this one the same, I wanted to create in that one the Amazon basin and this one a Southeast Asian biotype. And then that forms the basis of, well, you know, the objective for the competition. And then it's finding materials and plants and doing the research about the area to then build up that creation.
So that's your kind. You have like your own style, your own sort of philosophy, you know, which is based on, you know, the natural habitat, and then creating something as beautiful as you can to compete with, you know, these more artistic endeavours potentially, but using natural inspiration.
Yeah, I think one person which I know who's been doing it for a long time is Masashi Ono. He's entered, I think he's entered all of the IFL competitions, and I know that I've reached out to him over Messenger when I was first doing that Aquascape, and that's how I got sort of the inspiration for it. And like you say, there's almost two camps. There's the diorama and the nature aquarium, and for me it's about building the tank from the hardscape that I find, rather than coming up with, say, a concept that I might, you know, Photoshop where I want things to go first, and then manipulating the wood to fit into that. Okay.
So the starting point is the actual hardscape that you like, that you go into a store and you see this inspirational piece of hardscape, I guess. Yeah. And then you'll build from there.
Yeah, exactly.
Okay, rather than having the, you know, like you say, like this image, perfect image that you then try to source.
Yeah, exactly. And I feel that's, you know, the latter of that is more sort of man-made, rather than if you find a piece of hardscape you like, it's more, I feel it's connecting with nature and it's using that to the advantage.
Yeah, it's less forced, isn't it?
It is. What I would say is, obviously you have one piece, but then for me to sort of compete on sort of contest level, I would then do, you know, all the different scenarios for that one piece before I fixed it in place. I remember starting this, you know, this piece of wood over this side, and then having it in the background and thinking, where am I having the focal point? And I think that's where I get the joy out of it. It's through that creation and knowing that the final composition is the best one I could achieve with that piece of wood.
Yeah. I'm going to call this out here.
I know. That's me being a bit lazy, but also I would say this composition here is made out of 5 bits of wood, and I must have tried it about, you know, 50 to 60 different varieties, and all, you know, I couldn't get that piece perfect. And so it is a bit of a nightmare, but I think, like I said, for the purposes of competition you can lower the water level and then you don't see that as such, but it is an ideal. You know, if it was in aquarium gardens or in the store, you would look to cover that up, I think. Yeah,
absolutely. Let's talk about some of the plants then. So you've got a couple of different mosses. There's Christmas moss, weeping moss, and then some Physcidans?
Yeah, so I started with just wanting to use Christmas and weeping. That was from, I think, a Green Aqua masterclass that Josh Slim did. He mentioned about using weeping on wood where it droops, but then Christmas is better when it spreads out on a substrate, although they're quite similar textures. So yeah, I started with those two, and then I thought actually it'd be nice to interweave a bit of a finer texture on the rocks and also the main wood through the middle. So that's where I've done the Physcidans for that sort of feathery texture there.
Yeah, it's beautiful. And then you've got several crypts. You've got the Albedo Brown. What's this, the one behind there?
Yeah, so that's the same as this one here. That's the Wendy I. Brown.
Wendy I. Brown, okay.
Yeah, I was weighing up whether to use like Nuri Maiden, which is a
Rose Maiden.
Rose Maiden.
Really cool colours, the striations.
Yes, exactly.
I think this is more natural looking.
Yeah, exactly. I think the browns also contrast well with the greens behind of the Ottomaketon.
Yeah, what is that plant there? I've not really seen that in the hobby.
Yeah, so that's actually, it's a pond plant, believe it or not. So I couldn't find it on any sort of tropical website. It's called Potamogeton perfolius.
Perfolius, okay.
And I saw...
Is it fast grower?
It is, it's a stem plant.
Yeah.
So it is good for use with cryptocorynes because, you know, it prevents algae build-up basically.
Okay, obviously crypts are slower growing.
Yeah.
Do you have to trim it and replant it, or how do you control it?
I don't actually replant, I just trim the tops.
Okay.
Then it gets a bit bushier. So I've got a section here and also a section behind this area there.
Reminds me a little bit of because of the translucent nature of the leaves. Reminds me a bit of bulbitis.
Yes.
Yeah, it's really, really beautiful. And you've got Cryptocoryne crispitula.
Yeah, so I've got that in the background. I was thinking of that being more of a main focal point plant on this, with it sort of weeping over in the middle.
Yeah.
However, I felt it got a bit too crowded, the focal point, but it's quite hardscape dominant. And so having that open space, negative space as such, I felt was better. So really it's there in the background. You don't really see it apart from in the top left and top right corner.
Yeah, it's lovely. And then you've got some Blixia japonica?
Yeah, so I've got some in the background there and also behind the wood here. It hasn't grown in too well there, I think mainly because of the light. I've also got some right in that corner there, but again, it hasn't grown in too well at all. But I think, I did have Nymphoids Taiwan as well, where that crypt was, and also behind this wood here. However, again, I felt it just, you know, the shadows there was quite a big sort of focal point with this layout, and I felt with that going up and out, it's just a bit too dominating. Yeah.
I think that what makes this work very well is the coherent theme of textures. They're all quite spiky, and you've got you know, similar shades. So you've got like going from bright green to dark brown, but it's like a nice transition. Whereas with the Nymphoides, it's very different, isn't it? Yeah. It's almost like too attention grabbing, I would say.
Yeah, almost too saturated, I think, for this layout.
Super bright green, isn't it? And it just, I don't think it's because in Aquascape you can either deal with contrasts or like harmonies, and this is a very harmonic layout. So I think, probably a good choice to lose the Nymphoides. Got some trident fern.
Yeah. So again, sort of being native to Southeast Asia, I've got the trident fern sort of around the top section. I've also got one right at the focal point at the back. What I found is I did with the trident fern there and the albedo brown, I didn't have any planting there originally, but the focal point was too central. I needed it to be more sort of the golden ratio point in the top right. So moving the albedo brown there and having the trident fern on that the back branch, you know, just drew the eye more that golden ratio point.
So when you're going back to the beginning, when you're planning the layout, because you've got an Aquascape in Dojo next door.
I do.
So did you use that for this?
I did, yeah. Although what I did find is because that's open on the front face, this wood is leaning against the front glass here.
It's okay.
And so I couldn't create the full layout in the dojo. I created sort of the main skeleton as such. But the details came in on here. It is a bit of a nightmare to maintain.
I was going to say, from a practical point of view, what do you use, a scraper?
Yeah, so I've got the Pro Razor, but the Mini, and then I've actually got the extender arm for it. So really it's a lazy boy's tool because I can do it all the way down to the bottom without getting my hand wet.
That's great. Great tip.
So,
they're great, those.
They are,
I've got one reserved at the Crown Gardens. I need to go and buy it. They're super expensive, but they're so lovely to use, aren't they?
Yeah, they are. Really
I use. I've got a big algae magnet, but I can already see scratches where I've been a bit lazy and something's been caught in between. Whereas with you've got full control, obviously, with the razor.
Yeah. On the previous one, I used the Denola Cleanator.
Oh yeah.
But obviously with this, it's quite hard.
There's no way you could get in the nooks and crannies and stuff.
No.
Because down here, I guess you can't even reach, could you?
I couldn't. What I've done is so this piece of wood up here is actually removable.
Oh, okay, that's clever.
So there's a few pieces along that side which are removable.
Yeah.
And so, yeah, if I take those out, I can actually get the scraper in.
Okay.
This side's a bit easier to maintain.
Okay, and on maintenance then, what's your fertilisation regime?
So I use ADA fertilisers. So for this I've done quite, I've used their Bottom Plus substrate fertilisers, mainly for the root feeders of the cryptocoralis. And then I just, I dose every day the Brighty K and the Brighty Mineral.
Okay.
Then I've started to do on water changes as well. Use ECA Plus, which is iron supplement. Okay. I only dose that twice a week, really.
And what water changes do you do?
So I do about 40 to 50% 3 times a week.
Wow.
Yeah.
And that's you use reverse osmosis water? Wow,
so that's a lot of
work. Yeah. No wonder you've only got 1 tank.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, I don't have any other time to do others. So, yeah, I think.
Have you tried doing less? Maybe 180% a week instead?
I've tried 50% twice a week.
Okay.
What I do find is, because the substrate, well, it's all the planter sand, which is over the aqua soil. Right. There's a lot of muck build up on it, basically. Okay. So it's really just siphoning that. And I've got into a process now where I can do the water change and fill it up within 40 minutes, so it's not too bad.
That's good. And so you use reverse osmosis water. I guess your tap water is super hard, is it?
Yes, yeah.
And then you get the lime deposit on here. And plus you know, most of the plants and the fish, of course, prefer it softer.
Yeah, so this is, I don't measure GH or KH,
right.
I do TDS, and this is about 80 to 100 TDS. Yeah. I remineralise it with Sierra mineral salt. Yeah. And I find especially especially with these plants, it's worked really well.
Yeah, and the fish are super happy and confident, aren't they?
Yeah, I was a bit sceptical with the chocolate gouramis because they are sensitive.
Yeah, it can be.
But
you had no jumpers?
A few from the rasboras.
Yeah, okay.
Not with the chocolate gouramis at all.
What do you feed? What do you feed them?
I feed them the Denala colour flakes.
Oh, okay.
So I've got 2. I've got the colour ones and then the normal regular. Okay. I just feed them that. I don't go with any live foods.
No, that's fair enough. I mean, the dry feeds are so good these days. The nutrient profiles are amazing. And just the mono shrimp, is it you've got? Yeah. So in terms of the algae eating crew, I've got about 50 or so of mono shrimps in there. 50? 50?
50.
Wow.
Then I've got 3 or 4 autosynclus. They're the only ones which aren't native to Southeast Asia, but they are great for algae. Yeah. And then I've also got the Siamese algae eaters as well. Okay. Only 2 of those. Wow, well, let's go back to the contest then. So what is it about the contests that you enjoy so much? I think it's, for me, it focuses my mind a bit more on it. If I wasn't doing it for a goal as such. Right, you need that goal, do you? I do, yeah. There's a timeline as well, isn't there? Yeah. And I think, for me, I really like focusing on one thing. I'm not a great multitasker. Yeah. So having one tank and focusing on all your attention on that. It's almost like a mindfulness exercise as well. So I guess you enjoy the maintenance as well. Yes, I do. Yeah. I really enjoy that. Especially with this layout, there isn't, other than the moss really, which I trim probably once a month. Okay. Everything else is sort of self-maintaining as such. And do you have a position that you're aiming for in the next contest? Yeah, I'd love to get in the top 250. Okay. So in the previous layout, I was 449th. Okay. So top 3, I think, in the UK behind Pavo and one other who came in the top 100. Yeah. But yeah, I'd love to get in the top 50. Then obviously from there push myself to the top 100 eventually. And are you competitive, or are you just more competing with yourself? You are competitive because you're into athletics as well. I'd say I am. I think deep down I am, because I run in my spare time and do athletics. There's nothing wrong with that, it's good. So, it's a good motivator, competition. It is. But I think if I didn't have the contest, I don't think I would achieve this type of layout and put as much time into it. Well, I wish you all the best with the contest, and thank you so much for inviting me to film this amazing aquascape, and hopefully it's going to be featured in PFK magazine as well soon. That'd be great. After the results. Yeah, thank you, George. Cheers. Appreciate it. Cheers, mate.